On the High Line, illegal vending. You should not be here selling this. Illegal. That wasn't how I intended to start, but we're seeing how this crime crisis is permeating every aspect of life in the city, and there's no police to do anything about it. That's the first sign. And what's going to happen next is criminal activity up here, muggings, who knows what. But the police have basically allowed scofflaws, criminals, and I don't care what people say. If you cross the border illegally, you've broken the law, and you should not be here vending fruit and all this kind of stuff. But the real subject today is the NYPD Street Crime Unit. Have people heard of this? I hadn't before today. They have all these units that I didn't know about, and they don't tell you too much. I mean, look, obviously the NYPD has a need for secrecy. Anybody trying to thwart crime and operating undercover and stuff like that, they can't tell you everything that they're going to do, and I'm not asking that, but we do want a police force that primarily enforces the law. I think that if there were, if crime in New York City was rare, like if you would be shocked to hear that somebody got stabbed or attacked or choked or carjacked or robbed or crashed into by a bicycle on the sidewalk, if that never happened, I think a lot of people would not necessarily spend a lot of time thinking about the police and what they're doing. But the problem is they're failing miserably, and the city is becoming uninhabitable. And so the question becomes, what the hell are the cops doing? This street crime unit, it doesn't seem to be effectively stopping street crime. And what's even more interesting is, as I look into these things, it seems like the police are using a lot of their resources to stop journalism, not crime. And the last I checked, journalism was legal. But a lot of people saw on Twitter, and if you aren't following me, X, you can follow me there at JG_CSTT. Thanks to all the new followers over the last week or two. That video of me confronting Norm and maybe a little bit less so Ben Wittes, the director of the Lawfare Institute, really caught fire. That was viral. 2 million views in a week, 1 million views in a day. I've never had a video perform like that before. I'm not mentioning it to toot my own social media horn. It's just to observe that this is the type of thing that the social engineers I've been talking about for 7 years, George Webb, his stupid brother, mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi that he is, that's what they've been trying to prevent. They don't want this message to go out wide. They don't want 2 million people to understand that Norm Eisen and Benjamin Wittes and their various associates in lawfare, the Lawfare Institute, and just the general practice of lawfare, people to understand the details of that. They don't want people to understand the details of that, because obfuscation is the first step, right? If you don't even know about something, if you've never heard of lawfare and have no idea that it's going on, you're quite far away from stopping it. Likewise with some of these really questionable operations and units of the NYPD. Like I said, I support law enforcement, but the law enforcement officers themselves have to abide by the law. I don't support a rogue agency that just runs around, does whatever it wants, particularly not when they control the license to the First Amendment, the license to the Second Amendment. It seems like a very big problem to me. And the more I've gotten to know about the NYPD as it operates in 2024, the more objectionable I'm finding it. And there are a lot of people who watch Crowdsource the Truth who are retired law enforcement, or maybe have law enforcement officers in their family. And I realize it's difficult to hear me and see me criticize police officers, because there's this, law-abiding citizens and conservative-minded people generally have a sense that we support law enforcement, and certainly I do. But the issue is the NYPD is not involved in enforcing the law in 2024. In fact, they appear to be involved in breaking the law and assisting others to do that. So people might have seen earlier this week or last week on X, I was down there, I think it was the day before the verdict came down. I was down there at the courthouse in Collect Pond Park. Got a lot of video down there and around the courthouse that I think most people agree seems to show people who have got to be actors, you know, no real people that I see around New York City in the 34 years I've lived here. They don't act like that, right? But they all seem to be hanging around whenever we have some kind of political event, and it's all the same people. So look, at a certain point, it just becomes so obvious that there's no denying it, and I think we might be at that point. We've sort of reached critical mass with some of this evidence. So when I was down there, Orrin Levi was present, and I've observed many, many times that guy hanging around the cops and doing things at events that the cops are involved in. And when I say doing things, not good things. He seems to be a dishonest troublemaker, and I asked him in the park the other day, hey Levi, you know, your brother told me you're Mossad, he's told me he's Mossad. How did you recognize me the very first day he ever encountered me? How did you recognize me, Orrin Levi, from half a block away behind me? And he said the other day in the park that he walked past me on the street and that he recognized me, and that he had seen me on YouTube and he recognized me. So, to be fair, I suppose that could be true. And so what I did was, I spent kind of a lot of time looking for the video this morning. And you know, I don't have all these videos in a database. They're no longer on YouTube. So just like searching, it's not necessarily that easy. I think all. Could be one or two that are missing. I'm pretty sure I have all the videos that I've recorded and broadcast on YouTube and social media while I've been doing Crowdsource the Truth. I try to save all of my digital creations. I try very hard actually to do that. But anyway, they're not all at my fingertips, so it takes a bit of searching around. I don't want to go into too many details about how I do that, but even just searching for this video revealed some interesting and important things. It reminded me, for instance, that when I made it, it got interrupted. The live stream was interrupted. I had to do a director's cut. People who've been watching for a while and remember there was a time when I was having a lot of interference, and that would happen pretty frequently. And it seems like upgrading to newer iPhones. I used to use a pretty old iPhone on my wrist, and you can even see it in that video. I think it was an iPhone 6S. And the thought process at the time was, hey, this phone works for what I need to do with it. Why spend more money? But over time, as the demands have changed or whatever, anyway, the point is, it's possible that newer iPhones are more resistant to whatever radio interference naturally exists in New York City, which is a lot. But it's also possible that there are individuals walking around with certain technology that can interfere with phones. And I think we know that certain technologies exist that can do that. There are IMSI catchers. People frequently refer to those things as stingrays. The purpose of that is somebody is walking around or driving around in a vehicle with a device that's essentially similar to a Wi-Fi router. And you know from your own house, when you're close to the Wi-Fi router, the signal is strong, the internet works well, your computer picks it up right away, your phone, whatever. And if you go outside or into the other room or out by the patio, the Wi-Fi signal, it doesn't quite connect. So if you've got one of these IMSI catchers in your backpack and you stand really close to me and you're broadcasting a strong signal, the idea is it can trick the phone, and instead of broadcasting to a cell tower that sends the signal all around the world, gets captured by this IMSI catcher, and then the person controlling the IMSI catcher can do whatever they want. download whatever it is you're uploading, stop it from getting to the internet, do both of those things, or whatever. They can just turn off the broadcast. But certainly the other day when I was going around the park and asking these very pointed questions of Oren Levi and observing that as he and his friends were agitating me and trying to provoke me to fight them, calling me names, poking things in my face, etc., police started gathering around as if they were ready to do something. And it's interesting to observe the different scenarios where the police appear ready to take action and where they just disengage and won't do anything. Doesn't seem consistent with the concept of enforcing the law. It seems like there's some things that they're going to act on right away and other things that they just will not do. Arresting Oren Levi or any of his associates when they assault me is in the category of things that they will not do. So that's curious. But anyway, I wanted to go back to my first interaction with Oren Levi because I want to try to understand what the hell is up with this guy. I think I know, but it's important to review the evidence. And as I said, I discovered things that I had forgotten. There were aspects of that encounter that I recall, but obviously you're never going to remember it as well as a video recording. And just the fact that that disruption had occurred was quite interesting. And that was one of the reasons that it made it difficult for me to locate. Again, I don't want to go into details, but it was disrupted during the broadcast, and it eventually did go out, and it's still on Odyssey. People who want to see the full broadcast can get onto odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth. It's free for everybody to watch on there. You can also become a member on Odyssey, and then you're sponsoring the show. And so for as little as $3 a month, you're going to get access to lots and lots of sponsor-exclusive content. I highly recommend Odyssey. And I mean, again, it's a great resource because it had this Oren Levi video. Now, what's interesting is if you watch it on Odyssey, it plays fine. You know, I mean, it's not great. It's got some interruptions and some stuttering and stops and things like that. But I think most people have become accustomed to that with internet videos, and they know when people are walking around, particularly 4 or 5 years ago, sometimes the signal is slightly interrupted, but it's smooth and it plays. When you download that video and then play the downloaded video, it just won't play at all. There's something wrong with the MPEG file. And without getting too technical, you know, from my decades of experience as a digital media production professional and a visual effects expert and a stereoscopic cinematographer in Hollywood, I know a lot about MPEG files and how they fail. And it's got to do with how it's encoded, and certainly if somebody is injecting some very foreign signal, it just seemed like that. It seemed like somebody was deliberately trying to disrupt. Now, I can't prove that, but the fact that the video experienced a problem on April 4th, 2020, when it was originally live streamed, I found that extremely interesting. And it just made me wonder, is Oren Levi walking around New York City with some technology that can disrupt live streams? It seems like something that the police are interested in doing. The live stream the other day in Collect Pond Park got shut down and the whole entire YouTube channel got deleted. I suppose the police can call YouTube and say, hey, we're conducting an undercover operation and this guy, his YouTube live stream is exposing it. I'm sure, without even looking it up, the NYPD has some direct line to probably all social media companies for that reason. Specifically, if criminals are live streaming the identity of undercover cops while they're trying to do crime, that's obviously thwarting the police, and I would never do that. The issue is if the police themselves are breaking the law. I do not believe they have the right to do that, and I do not believe they have the right for me, as a journalist or a person or a documentary filmmaker, whatever people want to call me. I don't need a license from the police to be a journalist. They think I do, but you know, that is a license for them to decide if they're going to let you into whatever area they're protecting at a particular newsworthy event. They cannot stop me from just recording in a park. Well, at least not legally. If they have this technology or the ability to call YouTube and lie, They didn't call YouTube and say we're using foreign intelligence operatives to violate the Constitution and operate a rogue agency that's essentially controlled by the CIA without anybody knowing it, to surveil Goodman and other people who are doing journalism that will potentially disrupt other illegal government activities. I'm confident they didn't say that. I'm sure they just said this guy is somehow violating something, turn off his YouTube channel. But I'm just saying we've got a lot of evidence that the police like to disrupt YouTube broadcasts that they don't like. Now let's look at this video with Oren Levi. Hang out here in the shade and play this for a moment. I want people to see this and we're going to talk about it a little bit. This is Monty's Trattoria. When life comes back to normal, if people choose to visit New York City, I highly recommend this restaurant. Absolutely delicious, run by a wonderful family. And the sign says they're closed. What? What's up with you?
You're a guy on YouTube, right?
Correct, yes.
Hospitals are still not packed?
What's that?
Hospitals are still not packed?
Hospitals are not packed that I've observed.
Really?
Yeah, I was just over at the Northwell Health over there on, 6th Ave. A lot of ambulances parked there. Have you been kept awake by ambulances at night?
I have. I live on Ocean Parkway in Brooklyn. Ambulances going back and forth all night long.
Yeah?
Yeah, I have friends that work in the ER room and they're like, listen, it's pretty bad inside. A lot of friends in my...
What do you do?
I own natural medicine shops. I own Green Angel CBD. You probably see me on TV. That was the company that I was locked up for hemp.
I did not know that.
So back in November 2nd...
What's your name?
John. John. I own Green Angel CBD.
Green Angel CBD. All right. So you are being kept awake by ambulances in Brooklyn much more than normal.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. It's bad.
But what about here in Manhattan? I don't hear them.
I don't know. I just don't know. Look, my friend's a doctor in Presbyterian Hospital. He told me straight up, look, people are dying. Healthcare people
Don't people always die at the hospital?
Yeah, but now it's a little more.
A little more?
Yeah, well, a lot more.
A lot more.
If they're not able to fit the people in a regular morgue.
How do we know they're not able to fit people in a
Because
regular?
they're bringing boggies into these freezers.
No, how do we know that? We've seen freezer trucks over there, but they're not on.
I've seen them bringing bodies to the freezer.
Where did you see that?
Maimonides Hospital. Maimonides Hospital, Mount Sinai Hospital.
You saw with your own eyes?
Saw with my own eyes.
And how did you know that they were bodies in the freezer? Where were you?
Body bag. I live in Brooklyn.
So you're in Brooklyn, you're looking at Maimonides Hospital.
And they're bringing out bodies and wheel inside gurneys or the trailers, and there are body bags in there too. And I've seen them bring the body bags in there.
Where's the CBD shop?
So I own an online shop. It's greenangeloil.com. It's Green Angel CBD is the name of my company. We're world famous. We got falsely arrested for CBD back in November.
Is it legal to sell CBD in New York?
100% legal, yeah.
But not marijuana, cannabis.
Not marijuana, no.
Because there's these stores, the weed world, that are, what's up with that place?
I don't know.
How are they able to have trucks driving around?
I've seen their reviews, they're not so well.
They seem to be selling weed out of those trucks.
I think it's CBD.
I think it's fake. I think they're selling nonsense.
That's
Why is the NYPD allowing them to operate?
Well, soon there's going to be new laws. Soon there's going to be FDA regulations where a lot of these shops are going to get closed down.
Now let me ask you something. Do you have an app on that phone that has like facial recognition or allows you to locate people or anything like that?
What do you mean, like someone else's face?
Like how did you recognize me?
Oh, I seen you on YouTube.
What's the name of the channel?
I don't know. I seen you on YouTube going to hospitals with your camera, saying the.
When did you start watching?
I seen it last week. I think you posted a video. But
That's the first time you ever saw me?
Yeah, first time I ever saw you.
Do you know my name?
No, unfortunately. What's your name?
Jason Goodman.
Jason Goodman.
Good to meet you, man.
Nice to meet
Take
you
care.
too.
Be safe.
Bro.
Thank you.
You can Google NYPD 10 Plus.
I will.
And you'll see all the. We're on TV all the time.
We'll check it out. Thanks, man.
God bless, bro.
You too. Okay, so here's the spot I was coming to. There's our buddy. So here's another funeral home. I guess this is a pandemic that's localized to Queens and Brooklyn. So that was my first encounter with Oren Levi, and I'm just curious, what people think about that. I wanted to show the lead up because the other day in the park he said he recognized me because he walked past me. But clearly he didn't. Just before he approaches me, I'm showing the front view, the camera's facing forward, like that. So that guy just passed me, but walk up to me and pass me on the sidewalk and come right up to me and say, hey, you're that guy from YouTube. Now he did say that he just saw me last week, so that encounter was April 4th, 2020. So the week before that would have been the last week of March. This was really when the thing started ramping up. We were 2 weeks or 3 weeks into this pandemic. And remember, they were busily trying to convince everybody that the hospitals were overcrowded and there was a pandemic. But I, just for whatever reason, felt like that was not true and started walking around and just presenting evidence, looking at the hospitals. Obviously, there was no crazy confusion going on there. I think everybody now has a much different perception of what was going on April 4th, 2020 than we did then. But what else was he talking about? He said he's got a friend who works in the emergency room at New York Presbyterian. Well, that was one of the hospitals that I went to that the ambulances were all parked. The ambulance driver was like washing the equipment and smoking a cigarette. When I asked him if there was a pandemic, he laughed. The other hospital he mentioned was Maimonides, and that's the hospital where Cameron Kyle Seidel worked. I went to Maimonides, I think after that encounter with Orrin Levi, because he had said, yeah, it's busy in Brooklyn, you know, it's keeping me up. So I figured, well, you go look at that. And that was not the case. I didn't see a single hospital in the entire time that caused me to believe that there was some kind of intense pandemic going on. It just seemed like a fabrication. And he was doing that as well. What else did he say? He's very adamant that I watch his news broadcast. Like he's on TV. I've probably seen him on TV, he said. No, I haven't. I never heard of that idiot until he walked up to me and started hassling me on the street. See, the other thing is, if you watch it back, you can see when I say, ooh, here's this restaurant Monty's that I really like, I recommend you go there if you come to New York City, you can see in the reflection in the glass, I was on the south side of the street. So let's create this. I'm on the north side of the street now, but I was on the south side of the street, standing pretty close to the edge of the sidewalk because I'm taking a shot of this building in front of me. So here's the edge of the sidewalk. There's the street where the cars drive. I had my camera facing toward Monty's, singing its praises, and you can see he approaches me. You see his reflection in the glass. He approaches me from behind me and in the street, as if he's walked from across the street from the other sidewalk towards me. And I remember seeing that either with my peripheral vision or just having a very strong sense that the guy was coming from behind me and far away. So again, if it's like if you were a regular viewer of the show and you see me walking around with the selfie stick or the stabilizer here, yeah, maybe you'd recognize that. But I'll tell you the truth, that was a new practice for me at that time. I wasn't doing these walking around videos, really, before the pandemic, and not with a gimbal. Certainly wasn't to the point where, you know, people have seen this equipment in other photographs now, and people understand what this is. I don't know how the guy recognized me, and I asked him right there if he's using facial recognition software. He seems to nod his head yes initially when I ask him that, but then he says, what do you mean to recognize other people's faces? And that's kind of like a stupid answer, which seems to me like something that he's saying to kind of buy time. You know, there's techniques that people use, particularly pathological liars like Orrin Levi, to buy themselves a second here or there when they're being questioned. And yeah, and all these people who do whatever the hell they want on the sidewalk. He seems to be lying, and I don't understand how he would have recognized me without some sort of assistance. It seems like a superhuman recognition feat right there. So if he doesn't have facial recognition software on the phone, it's possible that someone else was tracking me by watching that live broadcast and communicating with a network of individuals, either through Twitter or text messages or regular phone calls, and just sort of saying, hey, you know, he's in the West Village, he's going this way. Do we have anybody in our network that you can ping and get them over there to disrupt. And by our network, I'm talking about the police. And it's not just the police, because what we've learned recently, I've been learning, as I said, about so many of these different divisions and units and all this different stuff that the NYPD has going on. We know about the NYPD intelligence unit, but I today have found out about this NYPD Street Crime Unit. So let's look into some of this stuff here. So this is the NYPD Street Crime Unit. This is the Department of Justice giving us an article here from Police Product News from November 1979. And it's talking about tactics and adventures of the New York City Police Department's Street Crime Unit. And they're related. Since 1971, the Street Crime Unit has grown to 340 officers. You know, I mean, again, this is kind of like a legacy article that they've reprinted here, so it's much different now. But members of the Street Crime Unit dress in civilian clothes and, after training in dramatic techniques and makeup application, can perform a wide variety of roles. The disguised officers then patrol the predetermined area as normal citizens. Success depends on anonymity. In addition, both the decoy and the ever-present backup team, which is also disguised, they must be skilled in acting and have an excellent sense of timing. They must be also prepared to instantly identify themselves. Now, this may not particularly relate directly to Warren Levi per se, but it's an interesting description of this street crime unit. It's another one of these things like the Intelligence Bureau that has just come under heavy criticism since its inception, because it's fundamentally unconstitutional and, I mean, frankly, just boldly illegal. Now here's lucid. I actually just found out that this is invested in by the Saudi Sovereign Wealth Fund, and basically it seems like it would be totally out of business if it wasn't for that. Their vehicles are, I think the cheapest one is over 100,000 or pretty close. There goes a Raptor. I think you'd have to be crazy to buy this, but whatever. So anyway, the Street Crime Unit, yeah, it's super interesting. So I looked on Wikipedia to try to find out more about this, and I know what people are going to say, but it's like, if they're telling you on Wikipedia, then that's bad. There's going to be more to learn about it. But this goes into the details, how it started in 1971. Now, it was disbanded in 1999 after 2 officers from the Street Crime Unit, I don't know, people who are in New York will remember, well, this was ODB. They got into a scuffle with Old Dirty Bastard, who's dead now, unrelated to that. But the thing was shut down, or maybe it was 2002. They shot Amadou Diallo, who was a guy, I think they shot him in his doorway. And in 2015, it was reactivated under the Strategic Response Group. So that really caught my interest, because the Strategic Response Group seems to be a component of the JTTF. So again, I mean, it's hard to know certain details about the NYPD because they don't want to share them, and they change these things all the time. A lot of people were sending me information about this woman. Is her name Karen Weiner, I think? So she's the head of the NYPD Intelligence Bureau now, and she's also an adjunct professor at Columbia. So there's all kinds of questions about that. Many people have seized on the fact that she's Jewish. I'm also Jewish, so just somebody being Jewish, I'm not necessarily convinced that that automatically makes them a criminal. There's a lot of people who feel that way. But I do admit there is a lot of interaction between law enforcement in Israel and the NYPD. And the fact that we've got a self-proclaimed Mossad, asset agent, something or other. I'm talking about Warren Levi. He's the one who told me he's Mossad. His brother separately told me that. So are they playing games, lying? Many people say, oh yeah, they are. We also had that idiot Manny, come up out of nowhere today because everybody was dogpiling me on Oren Levi's Twitter. He posted a video of himself engaged in the crime of assault, menacing. It might have been the intentional tort of assault. I think the crime requires an injury, but the intentional tort is just making someone feel like you're about to injure them. So when you surround someone and throw things at them and everybody's screaming and saying, come on, you, this and that, let's have a fight, that's the intentional tort of assault. The police won't do anything, but you could sue somebody for that. And I'm not saying that I will. I'm just pointing out that this moron video records himself engaging in crimes, certainly harassing and antagonizing people, and then he puts it on X and he makes money, and he puts his Proton Mail account on there and says, hey, if you want to license this footage of me taunting and antagonizing and committing crimes and intentional torts against Jason, contact me. Now, I tried to get that taken down from X and they didn't do anything. By contrast, when I do things that don't even violate the rules, they say this did something that it didn't do, and then they block up at CS The Truth. That's been going on for 2 years or something. So it's interesting to see how he's able to operate essentially with impunity. I don't like all this loud music that these people are constantly playing around here. And the Apple Store really, that's the US Army? Oh, it's operated by a disabled veteran. So I guess that grants him the right to do whatever he wants. What are you waving at? Get away from me. So see, all these people who are hanging out around me and doing all kinds of weird stuff. Anyway, he publishes videos of himself engaged in crime and doing intentional torts and all kinds of weird things that you would expect people wouldn't want to do. So if you look at that Wikipedia article, it tells you about how the thing was shut down, but then in January of 2022, Eric Adams brought it back. And again, we don't know what division this thing is placed under. They could come back and say, no, this isn't controlled by the JTTF, but we don't know. The cops are going to lie. You go up to an undercover cop and say, you're obviously an undercover cop. They're going to say, no, I'm not. So, here, where is he got it? Yeah, the Anti-Crime Street Unit with officers dressed as civilians. So even if it's not the exact same thing, I mean, isn't it? It sort of is. We certainly know they could have something like that controlled by the JTTF, even if they aren't telling us that. But there is a lot of documentation, even online, that seems to indicate that it is a component of the JTTF. This intelligence and counterterrorism document, it tells you that the Deputy Commissioner oversees the Intelligence Bureau, which is responsible for intelligence collection and analysis, and the Counterterrorism Bureau, including the partnership with the FBI and the JTTF. So this Intelligence Bureau is exactly where they tell you that they hire, where is it? Here. They deploy seasoned investigators and civilian analysts to collect, synthesize, and analyze. So I mean, they are essentially telling you, I'm not making this up. This is, one of the things that Stupid Manny said. He's like, oh, yeah, Jason thinks I'm a social engineer and that I work for the cops. Well, they're telling us they hire civilians. So somewhere there are civilians working for the cops. And there was one who came up to me on the street April 4th, 2020, a week after I was going around explaining to everybody there doesn't actually seem to be this pandemic that everybody is going crazy about, or at least I don't see evidence of it. And obviously, if the police and the governor and the entire state are organized to try to convince everybody you better stay home because we're in the business of pretending there's a pandemic, and I'm out there thwarting that, it makes sense that they'd try to stop me from doing that. But again, this goes to my Superman 2 analogy, and if you haven't seen Superman 2, I'm talking about the one from 1981, where Margot Kidder figures out that Clark Kent is Superman, and she spends the whole first half of the movie throwing herself out of buildings and over the falls at Niagara Falls to try to provoke Clark Kent into changing into Superman to save her, to prove her theory. But he outsmarts her by doing super things while remaining disguised, like lifting up his glasses and shooting a tree to fall in the river and save her. And that's what the cops need to do. They don't want to come right out and arrest me for reporting this stuff, because then when I get to court, I'll explain that I didn't do anything wrong, and they don't want to do that. They want to set up some sort of trick that will stop me from going forward with that stuff and convince everybody that I'm wrong without overtly doing something that reveals that it's being done by the police. And wouldn't having Orrin Levi, come up to me on the street and say that stupid nonsense that he was saying, which really felt like a script. They're telling you in those descriptions of their own things that these people study acting and makeup and put on disguises. By the way, this thumbnail that I created, that's their logo. I didn't create that logo. This logo of like an old woman looking like a bag lady. And it's, this is their whole, it says, "We own the streets." No, you don't, assholes. We, the people, own the streets. You all are paid by us to protect them. You don't own shit in your capacity as a police officer. You're here to protect and serve with courtesy, professionalism, and respect. And if you don't get that, you should not be employed by the NYPD. But anyway, they have that little old lady dressed up, and she's got a cane with her. So boy, what did that make me think of? Well, people who have been watching at least since 2022, and people who have read The Twitter Coup, which you can read for free on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. There's also a video version of it on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, both free. People who are familiar with that will know that on October 31st and then again on November 1st, 2022, I went to Twitter because I wanted to tell Elon Musk that the FBI was secretly, and I believe illegally, controlling Twitter. Now, Felix Sater and certain other people disagree that the FBI was controlling it, maybe they were influencing it. The point of the matter is, Jim Baker, formerly FBI General Counsel, was the Deputy General Counsel for Twitter, and we've heard now in sworn testimony in Congress how he was one of the strongest proponents of blocking the Hunter Biden laptop story, and in fact he was ultimately fired from Twitter by Elon Musk about 5 or 6 weeks after I went there. I think it was December, maybe the first or second week of December, that he fired him, and he said he specifically fired him because he played a role, is this Elon Musk? Because he played a role in hiding that information from the public. So there is a very clear through line in this whole entire thing that connects Jim Baker, former FBI General Counsel, to every aspect of this. The email from Ben Wittes to James Comey on December 28th, 2016, the same exact day Adam Sharp releases his press release announcing that he's leaving Twitter. There's an email sent from Ben Wittes to James Comey, Jim Rybecki, Andrew McCabe, and Jim Baker. Every dick at the FBI is named Jim or James. But Baker's on that email, so he's fully aware of Peter Smith and their plan to give these fake 33,000 emails to Charles, which fails. Their plan to jam up Corsi, which fails, as Larry defended him and Corsi did not take a plea deal. Their plan to jam up Roger Stone didn't work too well. That went the furthest, but ultimately he was pardoned by Trump. This looks like Heisenberg. Hi. That was an interesting cat. But even that guy had something different about him than those FBI people down at the park. Anyway, yeah, so I went to Twitter And by the way, it's so funny. George's mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi brother, he's just digging his own hole. And the first rule about holes when you're in them is to stop digging. But no, this moron keeps going. Keep going, Dave. Keep going. It's beautiful what you're doing. He was monitoring me in October, and I was coming off of a road trip. I was in Texas 10 days prior to. Oh, was this always called Oddfellows ice cream? I don't think so. I think I would have noticed that before. Oddfellows ice cream. Are people familiar with the Oddfellows? What that's all about? Strange. Anyway, I was in Texas. I was in San Antonio. I've been hanging out with Bob Bishop, and we were checking out the migrant crisis and all that. And then after that video with Bob, I had gone to SpaceX. So I wanted to share this information with Elon Musk. I thought it was incredibly important. And he closed the deal on October 27th. So there was kind of a lot of tension on that in the moment that I was in Texas, whether it would or would not happen. A lot of mystery surrounding it. Remember, Al-Walid had said...
Rubin Museum is? Rubin?
The what?
Rubin Museum.
Rubin Museum. I don't know where that is. Rubin Museum? Was that sandwiches? Never heard of that. Yeah, so I figured I would go there. I mean, look, this is what I did. I went to SpaceX. They have a public parking lot for people who, don't work there and don't have a security clearance there. You just go there, parked my car, walked up to the security desk, explained what I was trying to do, and I said, is there somebody from your corporate communications department or your security office or somebody who I can speak to about this and just convey this information to them? And if they agree with me that it's important, they could share it with Elon Musk and he can do with it what he's going to do. It seems a reasonable way to try to contact the richest guy in the world. I mean, you can't just call him up. I had tried tweeting at him a billion times. I sent emails to, Elon at Tesla.com, Musk at Tesla.com, looked around for other Tesla email addresses that I could try to figure out. And by the way, not all of those bounced. So it is possible that he got emails from me about this. But I went there and I had a conversation. They sent out 2 security people, one of which actually took extensive notes on what I was saying. And then they just said, okay, and left, and I left, and there was no issue. Did you work at Twitter before Elon Musk bought it?
It's actually no longer the Twitter building. They've leased it.
Oh, really? So Twitter's not in there anymore? X is not in there. You don't work for Twitter or X? Wow, interesting. Oh, but it still has an X there at the desk.
Sorry?
They still have the X. But they're gone.
Just got employed in this building, so
Got it.
I have no idea.
Well, that woman says no longer the Twitter building. That's super interesting. I wonder if she's correct. But anyway, it was exactly here that those people attacked me. And people who saw that video, now that video is a sponsor exclusive. If you want to see the video of the attack, then you do have to become a member. Or perhaps if we get to, if this lawsuit proceeds, maybe people will finally see that. But I was right here, and this short, fat woman came over and started trying to start a fight with me. Very similar to what Oren Levi and his big, giant friend, they were trying to start a fight with me. Well, why would you do that? Some people do it because they like beating people up. Some people do it because they want to beat you up and make a video and put that online. But it occurs to me that these people might do it because even if they're poking a stick very close to my, even if I do that to whack it out of the way, and that creates an altercation, the cops are going to come over and give me a disorderly conduct ticket or an assault ticket, get me into court. And the number one thing that they want is that if I deflect that stick And then I hit his hand and that escalates and he punches me and I punch him. Suddenly now I could be arrested for assault. Now I'm in jail overnight. Who knows what happens to me there? Maybe they come and say, oh, you assaulted an officer. This guy's an undercover officer. Now you've got a felony. And this is how they do it. Suddenly I find myself having a conversation with Andrew Weissman, or the 2024 equivalent of Andrew Weissman, and I'm looking down the barrel of a Felix Sater type deal where for the next 25 years I work for them. That is what they want. They want to take anyone who has influence and co-opt that influence so that they can benefit from it. And if you're unwilling to do that, they're going to try to force you to do that or destroy you. If they can't have it, nobody can, that kind of thing. And then the other thing that they want to do is they want to take losers like Oren Levi, who can't put two and two together, and elevate him to a 100,000 follower account so that every piece of nonsense that idiot puts out gets seen and retweeted by loads and loads of people. And so this is how they are able to control their message. Now, what is this? I had another video here. Oh yeah, the Strategic Response Group. So this thing was created. Lots of stuff went down in the 2015 timeframe. I mean, all of this sort of needs to be, right, this thing is controlled by the Department of Homeland Security. So there's a lot of reason to believe that there's quite a bit of interoperation between the NYPD and the IC, the intelligence community. I mean, in fact, there's a lot of independent reporting, including from the Associated Press, saying that the NYPD Intelligence Bureau just, operates, it's a rogue domestic intelligence agency that operates everywhere from New Jersey to Tel Aviv, outside of the jurisdiction of the local police department that is the NYPD. And I don't know, I haven't been able to find a congressional mandate or any law that enables the NYPD to become an international intelligence organization. I get it that there needs to be coordination. There's a lot of international travel, banking, sure. But don't we need oversight over this stuff to specifically prevent the police from doing all kinds of illegal things, like maybe making deals? And I don't know if they have. I've alleged this in court, but we haven't been able to prove it yet. It seems like some kind of a deal gets made with a person like Elon Musk, where, since he's the richest guy in the world, I would presume most people who deal with him want money. But the cops might say, well, just like when we dealt with Jason years ago and he would do video productions and things around the city and he would pay to have a police officer guard, his permitted shoot wherever it might be in the park. You got to, depending on the size of the shoot and the crew and the area that you close off, you have to hire a certain number of police officers. Maybe when you're the richest guy in the world, coming into New York City with a team of armed security guards, you might have some similar coordination with the cops, and you might also pay them for some other services. Like maybe they're going to get something like this street crime unit, where they've got civilian contractors who are trained in acting and putting on makeup. Does this start to sound like Crackhead Barney? Does this start to sound like Ezra Frisch? Does it start to make sense that these people are doing things that are, yes, minor assaults? I'm not there, bleeding with my arm broken, but, do people think that that's how civilians should be interacting with each other, inserting turkey basters in their vaginas and thrusting them into people's faces who don't want that? It seems like a crime. It seems like a sexual assault to me, and it was disgusting. And that is another person who's going around. You can't surround someone and have a group of people like threatening them. That's menacing. When you put someone in the immediate fear of bodily harm, you are menacing them. So here's more police stuff. I'm not trying to thwart undercover police activity, but to the extent that the police are doing illegal things, I just don't appreciate it, particularly since they're doing them to me and us. I'm just trying to, inform people of the facts on the ground of what was going on. So Levi was very adamant about convincing me that there is a pandemic. He's being kept up by sirens at night in Brooklyn. When I went to Brooklyn, it wasn't like sirens were going off everywhere. I can tell you, on September 11th, walking around in the way that I was in those early days in the pandemic, it was undeniable that a highly unusual and extremely urgent event was going on. Cop cars, sirens, smoke, dust, everything, everywhere. Filthy, smashed up cop cars, cop covered in dirt. You know, I mean, if every hospital I went to had ambulance after ambulance coming up to it, and people clogging the lobby, and, you know, people wearing masks, trying to make their way into the hospital, maybe there's any array of things that we could have seen that might have indicated some sort of serious issue. I didn't see any of that. I was just showing everybody everything that was going on. The other thing I want people to consider is this hypothesis that I'm putting forward right now, explaining that Oren Levi works for the NYPD intelligence unit or something similar, the international liaison, you know, he told me he's from Israel and he's Mossad. So that would seem to fit a lot of the stuff that we're reading, that they tell us. There's going to be, you know, details of that remain hidden. But is this consistent with the other things that we've seen Oren Levi doing? Well, let's think about it. The next time I saw him, and I have all this video, I'll put this together and I'll eventually do a big Oren Levi investigation that I think will prove this hypothesis beyond a doubt. But the second time I saw him was when we had that whole incident with Mac's Pub, which, remember, that was in Staten Island, and we had more of their actors reveal their true goal just the other day. There's that guy who looks like a homeless bum, who's got spinal stenosis, and he's kind of hunched over, and he looks like he's in his 70s or so, maybe late 60s, and not healthy. And he's tall. And I said to him in Collect Pond Park, hey, you know, that whole thing at Mac's Pub was a hoax. Danny Presti, they dropped all the felonies. And the guy first said, that's interesting. What are you talking about? I'd like to talk to you about that more. And that strikes me as a normal reaction from somebody that you would say something like that to. Because if he doesn't know, you know, I was there. I didn't know it was a hoax while I was there. So it's very likely that there's going to have been people there who thought that was a legitimate event. In fact, I think most people there probably thought that was a legitimate event. But now, in retrospect, I think that was all set up and fake. And the key players involved were NYPD actors, like this guy, Johnny Tobacco. Because what do? They put him on television, and he gets his show Wise Guys, where people think he's a journalist or a talk show host or whatever he's pretending to be. But I mean, none of that made any sense. And again, I allege what they were doing is trying to create a scenario that could be widely broadcast on the national news and their own, you know, podcasts and his stupid show on Newsmax or OAN, wherever that Johnny Tobacco show plays. But they want to advertise to all the independent restaurant owners in New York City, I allege, that, hey, if you get the idea that you want to violate this lockdown, you're going to get felonies and you're going to get jammed up by the cops. And it's just, it basically cools everybody's enthusiasm for getting involved in that. And I think that that's what they were trying to do. I got a lot of points of evidence that inform that hypothesis, but it's inconsistent behavior by these people. When the people in the park the other day became agitated with me, that tall, bummy-looking 70-year-old spinal stenosis guy hadn't had his conversation with me about, you know, what I'm talking about with Danny Presti, but he just suddenly decided that I was an agitator and I was there to disrupt, and he started yelling. I think that happened. We'd have to go back and check that video. But there's a moment, these are very kinetic situations, and these guys aren't that smart and don't know how they're going to go. And I think when they all think they're at a moment where the fight is about to start and Jason is about to get arrested, they want to increase the intensity of what they're doing. And I detected that That guy sensed that this was his moment to do that. And it failed. I didn't get arrested. I was able to calm the situation down by doing a couple of key things that the police responded to in exactly the way that I anticipated they would. But that guy had revealed what I expected. He was there. He wasn't my friend. You know, when he saw me, he was like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing? I haven't seen you since Staten Island." So he's pretending to be my friend the same way Oren Levi. "Hey, buddy, how's it going?" "How's it going with you?" is what I said to him. He's not my buddy. But he started emailing me 3 days after that occurred. So, I mean, again, does that seem normal to you that you would just be randomly walking around New York City, see someone that you had seen for the first time on YouTube a day or two prior or the week before, and then suddenly you start emailing that person like your friends? It's very strange, and it seems much more to me like a George Webb or Manny Grossman style approach where, you know, they're trying to insinuate themselves into my life and to have some sort of impact on what I'm doing with Crowdsource the Truth. And I think that Manny is still trying to do that. I mean, I have told that guy to fuck off so many times in so many ways, yet he keeps coming back in the comments on the videos and the stupid Twitter comments where he thinks the least I owe him is this and that and an apology or whatever. I don't owe him a damn thing. And it's just weird to me that, you know, somebody would be told to piss off and need to be told that like 10 or more times. It's more consistent with the type of behavior of someone who's been assigned with trying to insinuate themselves into my life by whatever means they can. And look at that guy, Ezra Frisch, when I saw him in the park. The only things I've ever said to that guy are, you know, pretty rude, because he showed up and basically right away, I could tell he was an actor there. And Matt Taibbi, at the Matt Taibbi event, was the first time I ever saw that guy, and his act was such an obvious put on. The fact that Matt Taibbi was willing to entertain talking to him, frankly, made me extremely suspicious of Matt Taibbi, and other things that have happened since then have made me even more suspicious of Matt Taibbi, where I just don't trust the guy at all. In fact, I think he's also some sort of intelligence asset intended to be a limited hangout, gain you know, public trust by being a journalist, and then put out the story the way that they want it. I believe now, and until Elon Musk comes into this lawsuit and proves something differently or some other evidence becomes available, I have to conclude that what's gone on with Twitter and Elon Musk buying it was essentially a reset of the Trojan horse. Twitter seems to be an extremely important fifth-generation warfare weapon. And I think what was happening is too many people were realizing that, or, you know, the censorship issues that were all happening before Elon Musk bought it got to a point where they needed a change. And I think they decided that what we're going to do is we're going to basically, you know, simulate a change of management and say that Elon Musk is buying this and taking it over and changing everything about it. But I think really all he's done is make some surface level changes, let back on Alex Jones, let back on Laura Loomer, let back on me, just to lure everybody into the trap so that at precisely the right moment, they can spring it again. And that moment is coming. Remember how dedicated they were to using Twitter to manipulate the last election? Well, this is the first election we've had with the new Twitter, and we don't know what they're going to do. Their manipulation of the last election intensified in the 2 months before the election. Remember, that's when Adam Sharp concocted a plan, I allege, with Georgia's mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi brother, whereby the brother sent an email alleging a copyright infringement. And on the premise of that email, they said, oh, we're going to wait 6 weeks and strike your video. 3 weeks and strike your video. They waited 6 weeks from the time the alleged infringement occurred. This was all done to time the deactivation of Crowdsource the Truth with the election so that I wouldn't be able to broadcast for 2.5 months before and 2 weeks after the election. Well, let's see. These were all the people who were directly involved in stifling the information about Hunter Biden's laptop, which just today, more testimony, sworn testimony in court, confirms that that Hunter Biden laptop was real, it's owned by Hunter, and the contents of it are now authenticated. Jack Dorsey has already said that it was a mistake to suppress that information. We know that Jim Baker was working at Twitter. We know that George's mentally ill, wife-swapping, paperclip Nazi brother sent an email to legal@twitter.com on October 22nd or 21st, something like 10 days before the attack outside Twitter. That email alerted legal@twitter.com that Jason Goodman was attempting to communicate with Elon Musk about the fact that the FBI was controlling Twitter. So they had 10 days notice. They know exactly who I am. They know what I look like. I showed up there the day before. Did George's brother contact these 4 people who eventually would assault me? Did they work for Twitter? Did they work for the NYPD Street Crime Unit? Did they work for the NYPD Intelligence Unit? Is there some other unit with similar capabilities and functionaries that we don't know about, that the NYPD hasn't published anything about? Are these tactics adapted by other police units and they just don't publish that on Wikipedia? I don't know, but this all seems remarkably plausible, and what they're saying never seems plausible. Oren Levi said Jason lies to get clicks, and he goes around agitating to get clicks. But when I asked him what did I lie about, he said that, Jason, you lied by claiming that Oren Levi used face recognition technology to identify you. Well, that's not a lie. It might be incorrect. People now have seen the evidence upon which that claim is based. It's possible he didn't have facial recognition software on there. It's possible George's brother called him up and said, hey, Jason's coming around the corner, go get him. It's possible. Any number of things are possible, but it certainly doesn't seem like he saw me on the street and recognized me. That seems improbable. And now that we've reviewed the evidence, it just doesn't seem possible. Where did he pass me on the street? I didn't see him anywhere on that street. It seems like he came from behind me. So all of them, they just vaguely put it out there that Jason is lying. When you try to pin them down on what is it that he's lied about, they're not able to present any evidence to support the claim that I've lied. Everything I'm saying about them and to them and the questions I'm asking are based on sort of irrefutable evidence. Very, very little speculation, and I'm trying to be as clear as possible when I'm making connections where things have not yet been proven. But even in the case where things haven't been proven, they're still so strongly supported by the evidence, with nothing else being a remotely close explanation. That's what's called prima facie evidence. This is what, until somebody else can prove this wrong, this is what happened. So that's where we're at with all of that. I wanted people to start thinking about and maybe have a better understanding of this NYPD Street Crime Unit and some of the different kind of weird divisions that the NYPD has had over the years. Remember, Linda Yaccarino's father was chief of police of, I think, the Nassau County Police Department or something like that. They're going to be involved in an NYPD, FBI, JTTF. There's going to be interaction between, I mean, if the FBI is interacting with the police in Tel Aviv, you think they're not interacting with the police in Nassau County? Doesn't make sense. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Please become a sponsor. Go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. The police are lying about this in court, by the way. I haven't brought up these specific details, but they've been lying about everything that happened on November 1st. They really, really, really do not want people to find out what's going on there. And I'll remind everybody, when I first had this notion of suing the police, I felt like this is going to be complicated, and I'm not a lawyer, so this isn't something that I can do. I need to get a lawyer. And the lawyer that I contacted was specialized in suing the police, wouldn't take the case because he said this is an open and shut case. They're going to want to settle it with you, but because they didn't break your bones or wrongly imprison you, you're only going to get like 25 grand. So there's not enough money in this for me. Thanks, but no thanks. That's when I decided to do it pro se. But you get it. There's something very weird about this case and all of my cases. And notice, what did Oren Levi say to me in the park? He said, how are the court cases going? How does he know that I'm involved in court cases? Why do all these people know all these things about me? Patrick Berge knows what I do online. I don't look at these people and what they're doing until they come up to me and start nudging me. That's what these people are doing. They're nudging. And then the police are right there to arrest me the second I do whatever it is they're trying to get me to do. Thanks for watching, everyone.